A big part of this stage is consultation, and not just with experts, but with people directly impacted too, like patients whose family members have spent time in hospital. They'll also help shape the plans. All that work isn't going to happen overnight. Even with plans to get going right away, this part of the project is expected to take up to 2 years. Then there are the other 3 phases. Stage 3 is where the vision formed in Stage 2 gets transformed into something more concrete, like preliminary designs. Stage 4 will see companies start to bid for the final design. Shovels won't actually be in the ground until Stage 5. Chris, one interesting thing about the timing of the budget announcement. Officials say they learned a lot battling COVID-19, and those tough lessons could help shape the new site. As for how long it will take to finish the project, Windsor Regional Hospital previously said it should take 7 to 10 years before construction is complete. But now they're not committing to that. A spokesperson says they're reassessing and can't say for sure how long it's going to take.
Now, Dan, a big part of this story are the groups that have been pushing back against the project along the way. What does this mean for that fight?
Well, that fight isn't over just yet. Citizens for an Accountable Mega Hospital Planning Process, also known as CAMP, they've been fighting the hospital's location for years, arguing it's too remote, too far from the city's core. The group has made a number of appeals, all of which have been dismissed. And yet, they're not throwing in the towel. They're trying to find another avenue to fight this. And today, their lawyer told me the provincial money doesn't change that.
The announcement simply validates what CAMP has said throughout, that planning for the hospital can continue, that Queen's Park is not going to be taking a different view of the project as a whole, but it also indicates that the discussion about the location of the hospital can continue simply because at this point the funding isn't tied to a specific location.
In other words, they still feel like they can fight the location even if the project itself proceeds. The group wants to make sure they've exhausted every option available to them. The latest is that they've asked a divisional court what other avenues they have. But months later, they're still waiting to hear back. Chris.
Thanks for this, Dan. CBC's Dan Takema live tonight. Now, that wasn't the only major item in the budget for this region. Today, officials are reacting to the news that Chatham-Kent will get big bucks for a new children's treatment center. It'll support thousands of children with special needs.
I know I've been actively pushing for that for quite a while. We've been working with our MPPs in the area. That is a huge thing for Chatham-Kent, that the Children's Treatment Center touches 1 in 9 children in our community, and the facility was designed for much less people. So that's huge. We're getting over $20 million to build that.
Now, there's no word yet on the timing of construction for that new facility. Windsor's downtown Mission is opening its doors once again. This after a temporary closure order was put in place by the health unit after an outbreak of COVID-19.
Yeah, they told me we were moving at the Mission. I liked it here a lot. It was nice.
So I'm staying here a few days. It was a great experience. All staff here would like to thank them so much.
Now, starting today, people who have been staying at the city's temporary shelter at the Aquatic Center will be transitioning back to the Mission. This will be done for about 20 people a day over the coming weeks. Earlier this month, the Mission butted heads with the city and health officials when it defied the closure order, reopened one of its locations. At the time, the Mission was concerned that some people were being turned away from the Aquatic Center. The health unit says the outbreak still remains in effect, but that the Mission has enhanced safety measures in place that should help prevent future outbreaks of greater magnitude. Windsor's Medical Officer of Health is back on duty. Dr. Wajid Ahmed appeared to be refreshed after taking 2 weeks off to take care of himself. He acknowledged that the pandemic has taken a toll, and he had a message.
This pandemic has taught many lessons to us. One of the most important lessons for me is kindness. We have to be kind to each other. We don't know what the other person is experiencing or going through. We can only see what is right in front of us and could never understand what is going on behind the scene. It is tough. It is tough, and I think we need to recognize that and we need to acknowledge that, and it is important that we all take care of ourselves when we need to.
There's an update on vaccinations today as well. Nearly 74,000 people vaccinated as of this morning in Windsor, Essex, up about 3,000 from yesterday. As cases are spiking throughout the province and hospitalizations in other areas are going up, we seem to be bucking that trend locally. The health unit says that's thanks to the robust vaccination campaign. The region reporting 21 new cases of COVID-19 today. Now, Dr. Ahmed says he does not expect the region to move out of the red zone for the next week. Some family members of residents at a Toronto area retirement home want the province to mandate healthcare staff be vaccinated against COVID-19. The call comes after 2 unvaccinated workers tested positive for the virus, and that forced fully immunized residents into isolation. Angelina King has the story.
Hi, Barbie.
Josh Horowitz's 89-year-old grandmother, Barb, is fully vaccinated against COVID-19. But last week, she and the other 140 residents of Amica Thornhill were forced to isolate in their rooms because 2 unvaccinated staff contracted a variant of the virus.
It's heartbreaking. They were promised that as soon as they're vaccinated, life will get back to normal for them.
Family members and the home asked York Public Health to relax some restrictions. About a week into the outbreak, it did. Now, almost all residents can participate in some programs and have outdoor visits, but they still have to eat alone in their rooms. To prevent this from happening again, Horowitz wants the province to mandate vaccines for staff at care homes.
That's the job that you signed up to do in life. You should absolutely 100% be vaccinated.
I'm just making sure that you're okay.
When her widowed mom was isolated, Susan Asa Katz did all she could to be close. She says without social interaction, her mom goes through bouts of depression.
She's called me and said, "Why do I have to be here? Why can't I join your dad?" And you know, hearing your mother say that, it's very difficult.
Long-term care and retirement homes continue to follow provincial guidance on outbreaks put in place prior to vaccinations. That can include isolating residents and canceling visits and activities. York Region's top doctor says that guidance is being updated to reflect the current vaccine situation, but says homes must stay vigilant.
Despite the fact that they have been immunized, they may not be totally protected.
At Amica Thornhill Retirement Home, 99% of residents have their first vaccine dose. So do 83% of staff, though more have signed up. In Ontario long-term care homes, 98% of residents have 1 dose compared to 74% of staff. When it comes to mandating vaccines,
it is an injection, so it's a procedure. And that would be challenging to do from a constitutional standpoint.
some suggest taking it further beyond homes like this and say governments should mandate vaccines for all healthcare workers across Canada.
We have a moral obligation not to infect people and not to make people sick.
This lawyer says the move could violate the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
It's a form of mandating medical treatment, and that is an extraordinary thing to do.
The Ontario government says it won't require healthcare workers be vaccinated, but continues to encourage it. Angelina King, CBC News, Thornhill.
Provincial health officials say that they support the vaccination of migrant workers as they arrive in Canada. Right now, temporary foreign workers aren't expected to get vaccinated until phase 2 of the rollout.
We have been working very closely with OMAFRA, who is the lead for it at the provincial level, and with the federal government. In fact, I was on a call earlier today about this, advocating for offering vaccination to the temporary farm workers when they come in, optimally at the airport. So we're working with the federal government on this. Hopefully they will be okay to do it, but I think if they don't do it, we will probably do it because it's important.
Now, she says there's still a lot of considerations involved, like language issues and making sure there's informed consent from those who are receiving that shot. Last week, Chatham-Kent's medical officer of health expressed frustration that this wasn't already happening. The University of Windsor's science department issued a statement this week about a report of racism and discrimination experienced by one of its students. Well, details of the incident remain unknown. The statement in part reads, quote, "We are deeply saddened and angered by this and other instances of anti-Black, anti-Asian, anti-LGBTQ+, xenophobia, and all forms of racism. Racism causes pain to both individuals and communities. Our campus community must come together and stand in solidarity to fight against racism and intolerance." Now, the university has been under fire in the past for a number of incidents. Last month, an anti-racism group said police arrested someone for allegedly sending harassing online messages to Black students and professors at the university. Back in November, the school denounced a fraternity, the Windsor chapter, for allegedly exchanging hateful messages, which included racist and anti-Black comments. Prior to that, there was controversy that arose when two professors used a racial slur in classes. Last summer, the university established an anti-Black racism task force, one of several strategies that it's taking to combat systematic anti-Black racism on campus. UWindsor's Faculty of Science encourages anyone who needs support to reach out to counseling services offered at the school and in the community. It's been nearly a week since a Windsor police officer fatally shot a dog during a service call at the owner's home. But today, police say they're still trying to determine if it was lawful for the officer to be on the owner's property when the shot was fired.
Our service, myself, and the team here are really deeply sorry for the family on the loss of their family pet, who really is a family member. It's never a good outcome when force is used on a person or on an animal. And unfortunately, sometimes it's necessary. And when an officer is in imminent danger, it's the option that a police officer has to use. And I understand our officer was forced to make this split-second decision. The incident is being investigated. It's being investigated internally, which does include the question of the lawfulness of the officer's presence in the backyard of the residence.
The 10-year-old dog Chloe was killed last week after police went into the owner's backyard to search for a wanted individual. The owner, Diane Scott, says officers entered her backyard without her knowledge before shooting the dog. Police allege the dog was being aggressive, but Scott says the dog may have just been trying to be friendly. This morning, Windsor police apologized to Scott for her loss at her home. However, Scott says she plans on moving ahead with a lawsuit against Windsor police. A group of about 30 students at St. Clair College have won top prize in a regional competition aimed at developing entrepreneurial skills.
I am getting experience that I can put on my resume that I wouldn't have been able to if I didn't join the team. So it's really rewarding, especially being able to help people in the community while adding to my resume.
The students created an app that helps students with life skills like financial planning and job search. They're part of local members, and it's a worldwide effort, nonprofit educational organization called Enactus. The team also modified the app to provide online help for students with developmental disabilities at the college.
A lot of that was review for me, but then it was nice to actually know things right the proper way, even just to do an interview like this, just to actually dress to impress, to make it look nice. To make sure your hair is nice and make sure you look presentable.
The team beat out 66 teams from other post-secondary institutions and are now preparing for a national competition. A zero-emission concept vehicle designed by Canadians is parked in Windsor right now, sort of. It's a digital twin of Project Arrow, recreated at a virtual reality cave here in the city. This week, we were invited in for an exclusive first look.
This right now allows you to experience the design.
This right here, the future of manufacturing. A couple clicks of a mouse and a digital prototype becomes life-sized. Computer renderings projected on giant screens. It's a fully immersive virtual experience.
Buzzword city, but Industry 4.0, you know, one of the main criteria is they're using technology to improve manufacturing process, to improve the product.
This tech has been in Windsor for a couple of years now. It's kept the historic auto capital of Canada connected to whatever comes next. Right now, that's Project Arrow.
We want to challenge people to say, look, don't think of this as just another car project, because it shouldn't be.
This legacy project aims to inspire the next generation of auto parts suppliers in Canada. The Arrow will be a Canadian-made concept vehicle, and that name might sound familiar.
This is the Arrow, Canada's first supersonic all-weather plane. And the birth of the Arrow came only after fantastic effort and ingenuity.
The Avro Arrow, a world leader in the 1950s, faster than any other jet, breaking speed records. A success, or so you would think. The entire program was shut down in 1959, either because of the high costs or fears it would become obsolete as other countries started launching satellites. Historians say it's a bit of both. Either way, that dream was over. 6 decades later, and the Arrow launches again, an aspirational concept vehicle to show what Canadian suppliers can pull off, waving the flag to get the attention of vehicle manufacturers.
You know, by the end of this, if we've done this right, there'll be no doubt that Canada, you know, by accident or by planning, has a chance to be amongst the top leaders of the new zero emissions smart mobility segment.
300 companies have replied to a request for proposals on this project. Manufacturers in Windsor-Essex could make up about a third of the parts in this vehicle. It comes at a key time when companies like Stellantis, Ford, and GM have made billion-dollar commitments to build electric vehicles in Ontario.
They're going to be shifting their supply chain and their sourcing patterns because these vehicles will require different inputs.
A physical model of the Aero vehicle will be built, but this virtual version will allow designers and engineers to adjust things without rebuilding physical parts. Then they can test them in a computer simulation, a cost-saving device not available for the old Aero project. It's here in the virtual reality cave where the historic Avro Aero and futuristic Aero vehicle collide.
The feedback from the industry has been phenomenal. The ones that came in, because it's like everything else. Oh, is that something that's going to be really helpful, or is it a gimmick? You know, is it? And then they get in here and they see what they can do and twist and, you know, I said, just like the movies, you know, move with your hand and see it, and they're just blown away by it. So I'm declaring victory, Chris, already.
Neat to see what they're able to pull off inside of that VR cave here in Windsor. For more details on what you might be able to do if you're a small business owner, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. It's actually something you can use for free if you meet certain criteria. We have a bunch of clouds hovering above us and warnings that rain will come. We'll figure out how much when Colette Kennedy joins us next. The Supreme Court of Canada has ruled that the federal carbon tax is constitutional. Under a law introduced in 2019, the federal government sets minimum pricing standards for provinces to meet. Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Ontario challenged that law. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney criticized the High Court's ruling, noting that his province's Court of Appeal had determined that the tax was not constitutional.
We are obviously disappointed with that decision. The Supreme Court ignored the Alberta Court of Appeal's warning and discovered a new federal power that erodes provincial jurisdiction and undermines our constitutional federal system.
The provinces that oppose the tax argued the Constitution puts natural resources solely under provincial jurisdiction. But in a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court ruled the threat of climate change is so great, it demands a coordinated national approach. Conservative Party leader Erin O'Toole is promising to repeal the carbon tax if his party wins the next election. Now, the authority that runs the world's busiest waterway has shut it down. The Suez Canal has been closed temporarily while crews work to refloat a massive container ship that ran aground on Tuesday. The 400-meter-long Ever Given is wedged diagonally across a single-lane portion of the famous canal that links the Red Sea and the Mediterranean. Some $8 to $10 billion a day in trade has been brought to a halt, with at least 160 ships waiting just to pass through the canal. Current plans include removing fuel and then ballast water from the ground in order to make it a little lighter. Refloating the vessel, which can carry up to 20,000 containers, it could take several days, possibly even weeks. Now, when we come back, we are going to take a check-in to see what the NBA trade deadline meant for the Toronto Raptors and see what Colette Kennedy thinks about it, as well as a forecast. The NBA trade deadline has come and gone. Kyle Lowry, still a Toronto Raptor. Several contending teams were interested in acquiring him today, but Raptors management just didn't find a deal that they liked. Now, Lowry is a 6-time All-Star and is considered one of the best point guards in the league, a standout on the court, on offense and defense. Lowry actually turns 35 today, becomes a free agent this summer. The Raptors did make a trade. They sent guard Norman Powell to the Portland Trail Blazers for 2 other players. We're bringing in Colette Kennedy now. It's nice to see that our Raptors squad is, trying to make improvements, but it's tough when Kyle Lowry's part of that plan there.
Yeah, I kind of had this moment earlier today that when I realized what it would feel like if he left.
I know.
And then that first game when he would come back from, as an opposing team player, but he'd come, back and how the fans would respond. And anyway, I played it all out in my head. I'm so glad that that's not happening because I was happy for him, but it didn't feel good as a Raptor fan. No,
I hear you.
I'm glad that's something that's worked out well today because I'll tell you something that's not is we're having some technical issues. So the weather system isn't cooperating. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through what's happening, which is, yes, after another fair day, we are seeing the system that's going to be pushing in and starting to push some showers towards us. But this is going to become more significant rain that we'll be seeing. So a more widespread, heavier rain with some embedded thunderstorms. Much of it, though, falling for southwestern Ontario in the overnight hours. Our temperature will come down 7-8 degrees, but then tomorrow back up to about 14. But what you need to know is as the system continues to work its way through, we're talking about 20 to 40 millimeters of rain, but the winds will shift direction, and tomorrow afternoon they'll turn, midday really, towards the northwest, and as they do, they're going to become quite strong. So still wet in the morning hours, and then we'll start to dry out, but wet and windy. So such a departure from the kind of weather that we have been experiencing, and I just want everyone to be prepared for it for Friday. And
I think that's part of it. As soon as you put those numbers in your boards, they were like, no, we don't want this.
They rejected the forecast.
They're like, thank you, but this isn't what we want, Colette. This ain't it.
Yeah, AI, it's happening here.
No, I know. Maybe we get you in the virtual cave next time. Maybe that's the big move.
I look forward to it. Yeah, you're welcome.
Now, it's the most active volcano in Europe, but Mount Etna is even more lively than usual. The volcano's erupted 16 times in the last 5 weeks, sending lava, ash, rock into the air. Some of that ash fell on nearby communities. A few flights actually had to be canceled due to the most recent activity. It normally experiences about 200 eruptions a year. Toronto's transit system is used to unusual passengers and parcels, but this morning's would-be commuter was a little more memorable than usual. What you're looking at is a beaver on one of the city's subway stations. Arrived a little before 7 a.m., just ahead of the morning rush. The beaver hung around for a while before animal control officers arrived to provide another form of transportation. And that's it for us here at CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We stream the show live on Facebook and Twitter as well. Feel free to watch and comment on those platforms there. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.